arms around me the way I imagined my mother probably would have. That's how the doctor found me, sitting on the waiting room couches with Ms Bixby holding me. He smiled when he delivered the good news. No further damage to my father's spine, only the concussion and a sprained wrist, probably from trying to catch himself. He was also dehydrated, apparently, and his blood report showed that he was taking more of some medications and not enough of others, which they would need to talk about. Then the doctor said Dad was awake and was asking for me. Miss Bixby lifted her arm. We both stood up, and I started walking around the hall, but she didn't follow. She stood by the couch. Aren't you coming? Miss Bixby shook her head. He's your dad. He needs you. Just you. I didn't move. No, I told her. I'm not going in there by myself. I can't. The doctor standing next to me put a hand on my arm, but I slowed it right back off. Miss Bixby took a few steps so that she was standing in front of me. I can't keep doing it all by myself, I said, my voice catching. When she spoke, her voice was almost a whisper, as if she didn't want the doctor to hear. Do you remember when you said to me that you didn't know what you were good at? You told me it seemed like everyone else around you had some special gift and you didn't have anything. I nodded, took deep, shuddering breaths. Do you know why I always show up at that corner every afternoon? I shook my head. Because I knew you'd be there waiting for me. Not because you were counting on me, but because your dad was counting on you. Because even if I didn't show up, you'd still go. Don't you see? You would go whether I was there to help you or not. She bent down so our foreheads were almost touching. You shouldn't give up, Brand. That's what makes you special. You need to show him that. Show him what it means to be strong. Teach him how not to give up. Then she gave it to me, the Bixbyism, the one she'd been saving, whispered it in my ear. It was from one of her favorite books. She whispered it to me and then made me repeat it back to her. And even though I'm not Steve, I memorized it on the first try. Then she gave me a quick hug and turned and left without saying a word. And even though I tried not to, choking and pushing and biting it back as hard as I could, I cried. Not for Dad, who was waiting for me in yet another hospital bed, or for Miss Bixby, who I later found out would be right back in the same hospital the next day, suffering through her own series of tests. But for me, hot, selfish tears smeared across my cheeks, because this was it, and I knew it. I'm not sure how, but I knew that it would be the last day I would have her all to myself. I know what I'm going to say. The moment we walk into the room, I've had it planned for a while now, ever since I came up with the idea to visit her in the first place. The idea of the one perfect day. And even though just about everything has gone wrong, and it won't even be close to perfect, as long as I say what I came to say, it will all be all right. I recite it over and over again in my head as we shuffle through the automatic doors and down the hall. The place is graveyard quiet. The rooms are almost all dark. A few have televisions on, but the volumes are turned way down. In room 408, a nurse or an orderly is staring at an empty bed, slowly unfolding a crisp white sheet, getting things ready for a new patient, or cleaning up after the old one. We move slowly down the hall, careful not to touch anything. The door to room 417 is open, but the old lady inside is fast asleep. There's a big bouquet of flowers on the table by her bed, carnations. Letting Topher and Steve walk ahead, I slip in and out in a matter of seconds, then hurry back to catch up. They don't seem to notice. The woman in 417 won't either. I'm guessing she had enough to share. The door to room 428 is shut, but the lights shine through the curtained window. Hopefully that means she's awake. This is already going to be enough of a surprise without waking her up in the process. I stand in front of the door for a minute. At least it feels like a minute. Then turn and look at Steve and Topher. Thanks for coming with, I say. Steve nods. Topher says, the fries are getting cold, which I take as you're welcome and hurry up, all in one. I take a deep breath and knock 3 times, reciting the line one more time in my head. A voice says we can come in. The voice doesn't sound familiar. I give the door a little push, and it swings in casually. From her bed, Ms Bixby turns and looks at the three of us, crowded in her doorway, and I'm suddenly speechless. Alright, so I want you guys to think of a few things. The story keeps being told in flashbacks, flash forwards. Why do you think the author does that? How does it make the story more interesting? Does it confuse you? How could you use something like that in your own writing? And then I also want you to think about what makes Brand stop suddenly and feel speechless. What do you think causes him to feel that way? And what makes Brand's relationship to Ms Bixby so special? What are some of the events we learned in this chapter? Alright, until next time.